I've told everyone again and again and again, if you're on a lease with a carrier, you own your own truck, you're leasing it onto them, or you're leasing a truck from a carrier or on a lease purchase program, whatever, that you really need to read over and have a clear understanding of these contracts. And here's a good example why. Talking with a young man here, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And he had no idea that the paperwork he signed with his carrier required him to give a 30-day written notice to terminate his contract with them. And there were penalties involved if you just up and leave. They're going to charge him a couple $1,000 if he just up and leave. I quit, I'm done, and walk away. Also, he didn't know that the money that they've been taking out of his check every week, that money they've been putting into a maintenance account, the money they've been putting into an escrow account. Under the terms of his contract, they are supposed to pay him interest on that money at least every quarter, so every 90 days. That he hadn't been getting any of that money at all. So for 2 years, he'd been there, never got any of that interest payment that was legally and rightfully owed to him. The carrier had it in their contract, but because he didn't read the contract, he didn't know, so he's costing himself money by not knowing, not understanding the terms and conditions of his agreement with that carrier. So I want to tell you guys this again, and I'm sure I'm going to say it 1,000 more times. Read your contracts. If you're an owner-operator and you've leased your truck on to a carrier, you're going to have a carrier agreement with that carrier. If you're leasing a truck from a carrier, you're going to have your lease, and then you're going to have your carrier agreement. If you're doing a lease purchase, you're going to have your lease purchase or your lease with the option purchase on it, and you're going to have a carrier agreement. You need to understand the terms and conditions of both of those clearly and fully. You need to know what your obligations are, what you're required to do. For example, let's say that you turn too sharply trying to turn around and you bend up the fairings on the back of the truck. Under the terms and conditions, that can be billed back to you. But if you don't understand your contract terms, you wouldn't know that. So then you're going to get all up in arms and angry because they stole the money from you. A lot of these leases have clauses in there for damage that is not normal wear and tear. If you get these center caps that goes on your wheels, if those start to rust, that's just normal wear and tear. It's nothing that you've done. If you crack up a fender, that's probably something that you've done or didn't do, which you should have done. If you tear off half a bumper, that's probably going to come back on you too. But you need to know these things, all right, because these are things that can be costing you money out of pocket. But also, you can be losing money by not getting paid the money that is rightfully owed to you under the terms and conditions. Maybe you've got a contract where there is a clause that you can request a full written accounting of all of your income and expenses with that carrier. Could be that maybe you're getting charged too much for your IFTA tax. Could be that you're being charged too much, for bobtail insurance, which bobtail insurance policies, these are not something you pay for every single day. All right, you get bobtail insurance. I learned this when I got my authority, when I first got my authority, and I was talking with OOIDA because they have their own insurance company, and I would always get bobtail insurance through them. But those policies typically last 3 days or a maximum of 5 days, because you only need bobtail insurance whenever you're going to be traveling from point A to point B without a trailer, your bobtail. This is not something you need to be paying for each and every single day, each and every single week. Bobtail insurance doesn't work that way, but you're going to pay for it, and you're not going to know why. See, these carriers have reserves built up. You're paying for it, but the only time that policy is going to come into play is if you're bobtailing somewhere. All right, so that's really more of your money that they're setting aside. They don't have bobtail policies that's in effect each and every single day, but they do have arrangements with their insurance companies to cover you to bobtail from here to there. Let's say if you go to, I don't know, Joliet, Illinois, and you drop your trailer, and then you have to go over to St. Louis to pick up your next trailer, or you're going to go down to Champaign, Illinois to pick up your next load. All right, you're bobtailing down there. That's when you need to have bobtail insurance. So if your carrier is charging you for it each and every single week, there's a reason why. And bobtail insurance is not very expensive. I mean, the few times that I bought it through OOIDA, and it cost me a couple of $100, and that would typically be on a 3-day policy. It's not a big, huge expense. So you need to know what this money being taken out of your settlement is for. And it's going into a fund that they have to be able to cover their several hundred trucks, including yours, under bobtail policies. So read the terms of your contract. Please understand the terms of your agreements. Understand the length of these agreements. Most of them are going to have auto-renew policies. Most of them will say that it can be canceled at any time with 30 days written notice. But there's a caveat to that, because usually it'll also say that the carrier, not you, but the carrier, can cancel your contract with them without notice if they think that you're a safety threat. You drive recklessly, you've gotten in too many accidents, or you've had too many DOT issues, or whatever the case may be. They can terminate that contract without notice, but you can't without paying a penalty. So you need to know what your obligations, their obligations and commitments are to you. I did a video here a while back on EOS trucking, and out of I want to say it was like a 15-page agreement, there were 8 items in there that was the responsibility of EOS trucking. Everything else was you being committed to do this. But they didn't have any commitments to you other than those have to commitments. And that's it. things that the law requires that they do. And so just keep in mind, if you're not in compliance with what they think, it can cost you money out of your pocket. Know your agreement, understand your agreement, and don't be afraid to question them. Hey, I need a full accounting on my settlements. Since I first signed on here, they have to give it to you. And you have the right to go in and sit down with the girls in the bookkeeping department and go over all of them. So know what your commitments are, understand your agreement, and save yourself a whole lot of time and claim some money that you might not be getting otherwise. You guys be safe, take care, and I'll see you down the road. Bye.